I'm not happy. You're not happy. So what we gonna do?
We're gonna talk about it, I guess. Let's do it.
What's up, everybody? I'm Natasha.
And I'm Tristan.
Welcome back to our channel,
Livin LaGrande Lyfe.
It's Mind Your Marriage Monday.
And as you can see, we got some things to talk about. So today, listen, we are talking about being unhappily married.
Yep.
And whether that's okay.
Yeah, that's a very, very real situation, and we need to discuss that today.
Yeah. So how this came up is we recently saw a video, and we're gonna let you all see the video right now.
One day I feel like I was in DC, and this guy hit on me, right? So he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, what's up? You married?" I'm gonna try to talk like a DC guy. Well, no, I'm not, because they sound crazy. No offense to all my DC fam. But he said, "Hey, you married?" And I was like, "Yes." And he said, "You happy?" He said it like that, like it was like a drop the mic. He was like, "You happy?" And I was like, "No." And the reason why I said no was because, one, I'm brutally honest, and two, I was not happy at the time. But what does me being unhappy have to do with whether or not you have a shot? Here's the thing I realized. A lot of married people don't know how to be unhappily married and still not walk away. If you could learn how to be unhappy for a minute, your marriage will last. Because the goal in marriage is not happiness. The goal is to build a lasting relationship that withstands the ebbs and flows of marriage, of relationships, of people. And so some of y'all need to learn how to be unhappily married and still be content and still stay right where you are. Just because I might not be happy right now does not mean I won't get happy later. Learn how to be unhappily married.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what you think about that, babe? About the idea, the concept of being unhappily married? I think I want to scratch that.
Okay.
Have you ever been unhappily married?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't sugarcoat here, and y'all are family. Yes. And you know, when people talk about marriage is work, marriage can be hard. It's true. It is work. I mean, I feel like any partnership, because that's what marriage is. It's a partnership with someone that you love, you want to grow with, you see yourself building with, you have like-minded goals in life, etc. That's not easy. I mean, it's no different than being in business, because it's damn near like a business, in business with a business partner. Things are not always going to be roses and wonderful. So yes, it's a very real thing. People who say that marriage is just a piece of paper, they don't understand the union. I don't believe they haven't gone through anything, or they're not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting because the concept of being unhappily married, I think that I have been both unhappily married and unhappy and married.
Yes.
So there's a difference between being unhappily married, like I'm unhappy with the marriage, and being unhappy and I'm married. Right? Like, and so that there's a totally different thing. And I think some people misconstrue the two. And
that's a really good point.
And so it's important to first understand whether you're unhappily married or whether you're unhappy and married.
Right.
Because, you know, you would have different resolutions for those two things. I think that they both have the potential to be short term. They're not long term things, and which is why I think this young lady was really alluding to is that unhappiness is it can be a period in time. Right. Like it's something that comes and goes. Like happiness is not something that you are just like always in. You're in this constant state of happiness, and you know, many of us have challenges that we're dealing with. We're dealing with challenges together, but we're also dealing with our own individual challenges. And so that's what makes marriage amazing, right? Because you like Natasha said, we're working towards the same things. But just because we're working towards the same things and we are equally yoked in our plans doesn't mean we have the same ideas about how to get there.
No, I mean, we're two different people. We have different minds. Or if you're in a poly relationship or whatever, everyone has different minds.
Right.
So you go about things differently. You have what you think makes sense.
Yeah.
And then they have what they think makes sense. And sometimes those don't come together and you butt heads.
Yeah. And I also want to clear something up. Being unhappily married doesn't mean being in an abusive relationship.
Right.
There's a difference between being unhappy and being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, because that is a form of abuse.
Yes.
There is a difference between being unhappy and being unsafe.
Right.
And unappreciated, or
your mental health is at stake because of the actions of the person you're with, not just because you're going through something.
Right, exactly. So I want to make sure that is clear. I'm not necessarily advocating that people stay in relationships where they're unsafe in one way or another, because no,
right.
Thank you. Get out as safely as you can.
Right.
And as quickly
the get
as you
out
can.
queen.
Yes. Run.
I want to touch back on something you said, that it's not a long time. Now, when you're unhappy, it can feel like a long time. So, but as Tristan mentioned, it's a period of time. So if you're with somebody for 30 years, but for 3 years, there's a stint of 3 years that you can go back and remember was a really, really tough time. That's 10% of the time you were together. Doesn't mean you won't have other unhappy times, but in a time that would feel long, it's not really long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And you gotta communicate eventually and be willing to work. I think that a lot of things that happen when you're unhappy is either it's pride, one. Two, there's a lack of communication, and a subset of a lack of communication is you expect someone to be doing or acting in a certain way, but you're not communicating it. And you're just constantly expecting it, or you're timid for some reason to communicate. Maybe you don't want to make it blow up more or hurt their feelings, but in the end it's affecting you, and you're just holding that, and now it's just building up, and you're not like, there's a lot of different things that play into what could be. I mean, obviously there's other things. Someone could be stepping out and you know it, or whatever.
That's not unhappily married.
Yeah.
That's
different. That's cheating.
Right? Like,
right.
There's a difference.
But I'm
right?
saying, but there's people will put that, a lot of people couple cheating into things like that.
Yeah.
Because they are okay with dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's something too. I think something that people don't understand though is that, like, I think that there's a right way and a wrong way to handle being unhappily married, and and unhappy and married. So for example, for me, in the times in our relationship where I've been unhappy and married, what I've done is really sort of, when you're unhappy and you're married, I think the worst thing you can do is sort of distance yourself from your partner. Yeah. And really sort of try to, just to sort of isolate yourself, because, for one reason or another, many people have different reasons, and, people handle things differently. But I think that that's sort of kind of the worst thing you can do when you're unhappy is distance yourself, because perhaps, when you're having those conversations and you're open and you're honest with yourself and your partner, because when I say isolate, I don't mean just isolate from your partner. Some people isolate and disassociate themselves from their issues and think that I'ma just ignore it, or I'ma just, like, smoke it through, sleep it through. It reminds me of Cranes in the Sky. Solange, you know what I'm saying? I tried to sleep it away. You can't. I slept it away. You can't. You got to figure out a way to figure out what's going on, communicate it, work on it with, individually and with your partner. Sometimes I don't actually, my partner isn't the best one to talk to in that moment. Sometimes I got to go to my therapist. Yeah. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, there are other things that I need to, I say therapist. I'm so country. Sometimes I need to go to my therapist, and discuss it and talk through it and figure out, like, what am I experiencing right now that is making it so that I'm feeling unhappy and it's impacting my marriage, right? Or it's making me feel like I'm in an unhappy marriage because I'm unhappy, right? It is not, I don't think, Natasha's sole job to make me happy.
Right. I agree. And vice versa.
Right. Like, it's really not. It's not her job to make sure that I'm happy. Now, is it is it something that I expect her to be mindful about? The things that make me happy, the things that make me feel special, the things that make me feel loved, all of that. I think that is important for her to have as a part of the things that she's, considering. I expect her to consider me in all things.
Yeah.
All the things.
Look.
In all the things, I expect you to consider me. But that doesn't mean that if she doesn't consider me, I don't consider myself.
Right.
So do you ultimately believe that what she said is true? And in what instances would it not be true?
That you can be unhappily married? Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe it's true. I don't believe it should be something that is permanent, and that it's the overall status of your relationship, of your marriage. I do agree with that. Would I have necessarily told somebody once they asked me that second question? For me, once another question comes like that, I'm done with the conversation. I mean, I know that's not on the topic, but it was in the video.
Oh,
like if you say, "Are you married?" Yes. Are you happily married? There's
mind your business.
I'm married, is what I am.
Ain't none of your concern.
And we are done with this conversation.
And you disrespectful.
Yeah, I'm married. It's simple. Now I say no to that question.
Right.
And now you, like she said, you think you just walking in, we gonna have something now? Like,
right.
No, I'm married.
And when I get to the point where me answering no to that question means that you do have a shot, it's time to exit that marriage.
Facts. 100%. Then it's done. It's done. And there needs to be a very, very serious, probably all weekend conversation that needs to be happening. Yeah. Because it's done then.
So what have we done in times when we have been unhappily married? Not unhappy and married, but what have we done in times where we've been unhappily married? I'm thinking of specific times in our relationship. And like I can pinpoint times in our relationship where we've been unhappily married. I don't think now is one of those times.
Nah.
I think we are happily married right now. Now, do we have situations in our life that are not happy that we are experiencing together? Yes,
100%.
But our marriage is overall a happy marriage at this point in time. Yeah. But there have been times where, baby, I was not sure. You know what I'm saying? I was not sure.
Me either.
And we've been married 7 years now.
Yeah.
Going on 8.
Yeah.
And been together for it'll be 13 years in a few months.
Yeah.
And so we've been together a long time. So what have we done? What are some specific things that we have done that you can remember to address our unhappy marriage?
I'm trying to go back earlier because more now the people that we'll let it'll linger a little bit, and then we both just like, what's your deal? What's your problem? You've been walking around doing this. I try to talk to you. What's the problem? Let's talk. Right? Like, yeah. And it might not be the best method, but sometimes, because a lot of times it happens on the brink of something happening. Like, like addressing it is one of the things. Like, just spot on. We're at that point. I mean, we've been at that point for a while, but yeah, for sure, both of us.
I'm thinking of specific times and specific things that we've done in our marriage. I remember one time we was within like the first 3 years of our marriage.
I know what you're about to say. Okay.
We were having a really rough time, but we was also really poor. We had no money. We didn't have any money. But I remember for Valentine's Day, one year, I got you the box.
Yep, I know where you going.
And we were having a lot of communication issues in our relationship. So this was even before we were married.
Yeah.
We were having communication issues in our relationship, and she was having situations where she couldn't talk to me. She wasn't communicating with me. We fight different in terms of, I don't want to say fight. We disagree differently. We, when we're going through it, we just are different.
Yeah.
In the way that we handle conflict. That's what I mean. We conflict different. So she was always like really good at, like, she's a writer. She likes to write things down. She's a poet. She likes to write letters and poetry and things of that nature. And I'm a talker. So, but I wanted to meet her where she was. And so one year for Valentine's Day, I got her this box, and we still have the box upstairs.
Yeah.
And it has
It comes out very rarely now. Very rarely.
It used to come out a lot back then.
And then it kind of got scattered, like, see, we're in one of these places. And I'll let you say what we did and then I'll speak.
Yeah, so what I did was I got this box and I got a pretty beautiful pen and I got a journal to go inside the box. And I wrote. Wrote in chalk. So I decorated the box and I put like, I should show the box. I had like TNT on it because we always say our relationship is explosive and Tristan and Tasha, right?
Yeah.
So we put TNT and then it had like chalk on it, like chalk sticker on it, and I put chalk inside of it. And so when and I put a pen and paper in there, and whenever there was a situation, or I left it to her for Valentine's Day and I wrote to her in it, we've been struggling. Some along the lines of like, we've been struggling, this is what we've been going through. But I didn't write it to her. I wrote it to the journal.
Yep.
Because we were at a point right now where we were not only struggling, but we were isolated from our friends and family for some reason.
Yeah.
We didn't really have any outlet, so we just had each other. And so I felt like she needed to talk to somebody else in order to get her feelings across so that I could, in a way that I could understand. So I wrote in the journal and I would talk to the journal. Hey, journal. I don't remember what I think I just called it journal.
Yeah, journal.
Hey, journal. This is what's going on. I'm having a really hard time connected with Natasha right now. I feel like she's just so far from me, so distant. She doesn't want to talk to me.
We would go in detail on what was going on.
We would go in
and
detail,
sign it and date it.
We would sign it and date it, and then we would leave it somewhere where where I left it where she would find it.
And we would, on top, the chalk was like to put the person's name or the date or something like that to know this is now.
Yeah. So I would leave it somewhere where she would find it, and then she would find it, she would open it up, and she would read what I had written to that person. So it was almost like her overhearing a conversation with a friend. She would get to know all the deepest points of my feelings and my thoughts that I may not know how to say to her, or I may not feel comfortable saying to her, but I felt comfortable saying to somebody else. And she would read them, and then she would talk to her friend, the journal.
Yep.
And so she would respond, this is what I'm feeling, and then she would set it somewhere where I would find it. And then I would go somewhere, I would find it, and then I would read it, and I would either respond or I wouldn't, but we never talked about it. We never talked about it at all. We just talked about it to the journal, and then the other person would read it, and then we would know what that other person was thinking, and we would respond accordingly. Like, if I was saying I feel like she was, pulling away from me, she wasn't showing me affection, I would notice her showing me affection, or I would notice her trying to explain her feelings. I would notice her doing things differently. But we didn't have to argue about it. Yeah. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't a you don't get it, you don't understand. There was no interruption. And
what was that?
Well, I said there was no interruption, and apparently I can't say the word interruption because when I say that, there are interruptions.
And we would know when the writing to the journal was done.
Yeah, so we would really pull it out. And so for a while there, because we were unhappily relationed at the moment, that box was getting worked. You feel me? That journal, that box was getting tossed to and fro. It was around all the time. And sometimes I would respond to what she said to the journal, but I would never say it to her because I wasn't trying to argue with her. I wasn't trying to argue with her. You feel me? And so I would just say it to the journal. And so sometimes we would disagree even when talking to the journal.
Yeah.
But it was something that was on paper, so we could go back and read it. We could go back and do whatever. And then all of a sudden, it just started coming out less and less. And now at this point, I don't think we've seen that thing in about 5, 6 years.
I'm about to say, I don't even know I think it came out one time in our marriage.
Maybe once. I think once, if that, once maybe.
Yeah, but
once in our marriage,
it was something that got us in a great place to be able to be married. But that's kind of what we're talking about in communication and finding positive methods and ways to, because you gotta want to do the work.
Yeah,
you have to.
I'm gonna have to show y'all the box one day. Yeah. I mean, I have it right upstairs, but yeah, it's in different condition now, and it's used differently now. Now it's just like a storage box that's just storing all these keepsakes from our relationship, but it still has the journal in it, and it still has the pen, and it still has the chalk in it.
Get there again, we have it, and we know, and it's not a conversation. One of us just knows, okay, it's time for the box. It takes a lot to get to the box.
Percolator. Hey,
it's time for the percolator. It's time for the percolator.
Especially where we are now, like
Yeah.
We're the box.
I think now since we've gotten married, now we're just more comfortable. And again, we've been together a really long time. We're just more comfortable saying what we have to say and knowing what doesn't need to be said.
Yes.
Come on, somebody. Knowing what doesn't need to be said, I think it got us to a great place as a married couple.
Yeah.
I think the most recent time since we've been married that I've noticed that we were unhappy, it was probably about 3 years ago. Okay. 3.5 years ago. And we were in the process of getting our house built. We had decided to make a really, really big shift, take a risk, so that we had to take a step back, several steps back, so that we could go forward. And when I tell you, we had the most breakthrough in our lives during this 18-month period, but we struggled in our marriage. And I think it was probably one of the times where I was wondering if we were going to make it. Yeah. Not because of where we were or what we were doing, but just there were so many things happening. I mean, it was during the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
It was during times when so we were stuck in the house, cramped together.
I'll say, to give a slight background, we decided we wanted to buy a home. So we moved out of our apartment, put all of our stuff in storage, and moved in with a family member. And so Tristan and I were living in a bedroom. We had our office desk in the bedroom, our bed, part of our couch, and all of our clothes. And
every piece of clothing we owned. And
we were running a business all of this out of one room for 18 months at the start of the pandemic.
And we had no idea the pandemic was coming at the time. Nah. So we didn't know we was going to be cooped up in that room 24/7, unable to leave the house because it was a life or death situation. Yeah. I had started a new job. She hated her job. I loved my job, but I had a little bit of situations going on. Whether I didn't know if I was actually built for this. I was in the process of becoming a certified coach. It was just a lot happening, and we were just going at it. And I remember laying in the bed, like crying one night, and we had like one of those deep conversations where we stayed up all night long, just crying in the bed with each other, just crying. Yeah. Crying all night long and talking. Mm-hmm. And then I remember a few days later, Tasha said, I want to get to know you again. Because I think the issue was like, we were butting heads because it was just like, you're not doing the things I need you to do. Like, you're not the person you used to be, and you're not this, and you're not that. And we'll talk about that some more another time, I think. Because we recently thought about doing a My Marriage Monday about that
on
too.
That too, yeah.
But like, literally, it was just like, yep. And maybe we'll do a My Marriage Monday on that, and we'll tell y'all how we got out of that. Let us know if y'all want to know how we got out of the worst. Yeah, that was the worst. Because we'll talk about that. But we've gone through some things.
Yeah, but that was the worst. Because I also was like, I don't know if I'm going to be married at the end of this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. And then we went and bought a house and had to get it built. But even still, the house was being built from the ground up, and we still was like, I don't know if we're gonna move into this thing,
because we still had a chance until we signed them papers.
Yeah, we was like, I don't know. The
house wasn't ours.
I'm not sure.
The official papers. So
right.
Matter of fact, we'll end this right there, and y'all tell us if you want to hear about that one.
Yeah, let us know. And if this is your first time watching one of our Mind Your Marriage Mondays, welcome. We are so happy to have you, and we want you to stick around, and we know you want to stick around. Sure. So go ahead and subscribe. Yeah. And when you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell. Ding. So you are notified when your new friends LaGrandes post new content.
Exactly.
And while we're on the subject of content, please don't forget to comment to let us know what you thought about this. And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about your new friends LaGrandes. As you all know, we are on our road to 1,000 subscribers.
Tell a friend. Yeah, we can't wait to read your comments. We love talking to you guys and reading your comments and seeing your perspective on these different situations that we bring on Mind Your Marriage Monday. So we're going to holler at you guys. A few videos are going to pop up here to see some other Mind Your Marriage Mondays that we've done. And we love y'all. We'll see you next video. Bye.